Earth-shaking revenge, that is what Jordan's King Abdullah has now promised to ISIS. This after the unthinkable, the caging, the videotaping, and burning to death of his nation's pilot. And thousands of people in Jordan taking their outrage to the streets. So, is this the moment the Pentagon has been waiting for? Joining us now, Defense One's Kevin Barron. Kevin, that is what you wrote today. Jordan's retaliation is the real Arab awakening the Pentagon has been waiting for. What do you mean by that?
Well, the Pentagon's strategy for everything in the world is to try to get every other military to do the fighting for themselves. This is the big lesson after Iraq and Afghanistan, right? And Jordan
has it worked?
Well, it's starting to, I guess, in some places. But I mean, don't just think of the Middle East. Think of Thailand. Think of Colombia, the big success story there that the Pentagon points to often. Jordan was particular to the Middle East, and especially for special operations and counterterrorism, the kind of stuff we're likely to see going forward because of this event. They have an elite training center there that the U.S. Army built and funded, and all the top generals back about 5 years ago made their way through it to give it their blessing. And it was a place where the Afghans and Iraqis were going to go train, but also everyone else in the region. And this is King Abdullah. This is a guy he's a special operator himself and likes to associate himself that way, and the Pentagon loves him. They've been waiting for this moment.
You know, I would love to believe that. I don't. You know, you've got a king in a very fragile situation. He's got millions of refugees from Syria, Palestinian refugees. He's got a situation where he's only got 100,000, I think, in his military. He doesn't have all the fighter planes. He's been asking the United States for money. They struck some sort of deal in December. He still hasn't gotten it. And I don't think one king of one small country that is so vulnerable for so many reasons, if the U.S. thinks that that king is going to carry the day against ISIS and save our American and every other hostage, I think that, I don't know what the Pentagon shouldn't be holding its breath.
Well, don't think of it as just that king, right? This is still part of the coalition, and there are only certain countries and certain people who could do it.
UAE is dumped out because of this.
Right. Well, that's what we're all waiting to see, is what changes and what comes next. And it's not about does Jordan have the big army, the big tanks, the big aircraft to take over the big warfare kinds of things the Americans do. We're still going to have to do all the enabling that the Americans always have to do, the tankers, the search and rescue, everything that goes with that. But the special operations stuff, some of the elite things, some of the covert things that we're not talking about, that don't get covered as much as well, are all part of counterterrorism to go after ISIL, and in a way that hasn't been seen yet. Any kind of change in that direction is a positive change for the Pentagon. This is what building partner capacity is about. That phrase they love to say.
You're at the Pentagon. You covered a lot. You probably know a lot more than I do. I just have a hard time believing it. Although I will give you credit that you know this a lot better than I do. I'll give you credit for that. I
won't argue with you.
Anyway, Kevin, thank you.
My pleasure.